today with Monica Victorica, a criminal attorney with Carson and Ledan in the Kissimmee area of Central Florida. And Monica is a board-certified criminal attorney, and she's been practicing for approximately 13 years. Monica tells us that because the Kissimmee area has such a high number of Spanish-speaking people, that she's uniquely able to help those kind of people because she speaks Spanish. In fact, this interview will be republished in Spanish for people that speak Spanish to help them understand. Welcome, Monica, and thank you for taking the time to do the interview today.
Thank you. Thank you for interviewing me.
All right, so if you're ready, we'll get started. First question is, what prompted you to work as a criminal defense attorney, and what motivates you to do your work?
Well, my background is I started out being a prosecutor. I was a prosecutor for the first approximately 8 years of my career, and so I very much learned all about the ins and outs of the criminal prosecuting world through that angle, and so I was interested in trying the opposite side as a defense attorney. I tell people a lot of times it's very much like playing chess. As a defense attorney, I have an advantage of being a former prosecutor, knowing what the other side is going to do. I find it rewarding to do criminal defense because oftentimes people really just need help in the system, and just to make sure that the state is there doing their job appropriately, and if they're not, to push the cases as far as needed to go.
Okay. Right. And your credentials say you're a board-certified attorney. I mean, what does that mean to people that need criminal defense? Why is that important?
Board-certified attorney we're basically specializing in our field. So I took an exam back in 2009 to become board-certified in criminal law. The advantage of hiring somebody that's board-certified is that we're considered experts in our field, obviously. So it's a little bit of a long, involved process. I passed the regular bar exam, which all attorneys that are practicing had to pass. This is like a second level that is providing expertise in the field of criminal law. We had to take a specific exam and then also be reviewed by our peers to see if we were fit to be called an expert in this area. So the advantage of hiring somebody like me would be that I can, with my background, because criminal trial law is all of what me and my law firm do, with all that kind of background, we can then evaluate a case appropriately, make sure that the state is doing their job, and if they're not doing their job, to fight the appropriate battles that need to be fought, and in the end have an advantage for our client.
All right, so I see. So not only were you a prosecutor, but you know the other side, but now you're a defense attorney, and you took the extra step of getting board certified, so you really know your way around the criminal defense side of things from all angles. That's what that's telling me. It's what I'm hearing. Yes,
that's what we pride ourselves at our law firm, and that's what I pride myself in, giving help to my clients.
Okay, that's great. That shows a real commitment to doing what you do well, and that would make me feel very comfortable, if I was to speak to you. So that's great. So moving on, it seems like there's a large Hispanic population in Central Florida, and in Kissimmee in particular. So do you tend to represent many Hispanic people?
I do. Probably about half of my practice is Spanish-speaking people. Our particular law firm at Carson and Ledan, we do Seminole County, Orange County, and Osceola County as the three main counties that we work with. I'm the Spanish-speaking attorney for our law firm, so those are the three areas of town that I specifically go to. My main office is in Kissimmee, and there is a pretty large Hispanic population in Kissimmee, so I feel that that's an advantage for me helping those people. There's not a whole lot of Spanish-speaking attorneys that I've noticed in criminal law. Certainly there are some, but oftentimes it's to the advantage of somebody that's speaking Spanish to have somebody that obviously can speak with them and understand what they're saying and understand their point of view, as opposed to an English-speaking attorney or maybe an attorney using a staff member that speaks Spanish. A lot of things are lost in translation.
All right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, we have defendants that speak Spanish. They may not even speak English well, and they're dealing with an English-based criminal justice system. And this is, to have you in court would be far better than having you an assistant or you and a translator that comes in, because, like you said, you can hear all the intricacies and all the different things that are going on, both in Spanish and in English. So I understand. Okay.
Yes, I mean it's exactly true. And there's even some people that when I interview them, they may not even have been able to read the police report. You know, if them and their family members can't um, read in English, you know, obviously the police reports are written in English, and sometimes people are surprised as to what's actually in the police report, and you know they have different versions of what happened on that particular day or night.
Okay. So this is really interesting. I'm going to ask you a few questions about Spanish-speaking people. I know there's a lot of other stuff that you do, but for now, if you don't mind, let me ask you a few more questions about this to get some more info.
Sure.
Have you noticed anything different about representing Spanish-speaking people that's different from representing, let's say, other ethnicities or just regular English-speaking folk?
I do find that people appreciate the fact that I do speak Spanish and can talk to them in their own language. That's definitely an advantage. So I find that they are comfortable in that kind of realm of talking to me about things like that. So that's one of those things that I think that there's that immediate connection as opposed to maybe other ethnicities. They feel like they can trust me and can tell me their side of the story, and that's something that I'm going to listen to. So that's definitely an advantage for having that kind of connection with them.
Okay. And I know you're not an immigration attorney, but do immigration issues come into play often when you're dealing with Spanish-speaking people that are, maybe they're in various stages of their immigration status?
It does come into play. When somebody accepts a plea or is found guilty by a judge, the judge will inform them that any kind of criminal case could potentially affect their status here in this country and could subject them to deportation. Certainly, there are certain kinds of cases that I look at very carefully, even though I'm not an immigration attorney, but I'm very careful with felonies or drug cases or crimes of violence. Those, in my experience, tend to be the kinds of cases that may affect regarding immigration. So it's something that I'm cognizant of and, advise my clients that there could potentially be consequences. And, of course, in those scenarios, always trying to shoot for either the case being dismissed or maybe some sort of other sanction that may not affect them so strongly regarding immigration.
Okay. And a hot issue lately seems to be DUI. Have you seen DUI affect people's immigration status if they're convicted?
I've represented lots of people on DUI type cases. Since I'm not an immigration attorney, I don't have the frontline exposure to that. But from what I've seen from the clients that I've represented, it doesn't seem to be one of those triggers regarding immigration. But certainly a judge will inform anybody for any kind of plea that it possibly could affect regarding immigration.
Okay. All right. Do you feel that Spanish-speaking people that aren't 100% English-speaking, do you think they're at a disadvantage in the criminal justice system?
I do to a certain extent. I mean, certainly, especially if you're dealing with a English-speaking police officer and there's nobody brought out to the scene that may be able to translate, or if that particular officer doesn't speak Spanish himself. Give an example of DUI cases. There are people that speak Spanish that understand maybe some English may not be able to express themselves in the same sort of way that they would in their own native tongue. So, and also understanding, it's difficult to see if a person 100% understands what the officer is directing them to do or asking them. And sometimes there is that language barrier that gets in the way of that. And also something to be aware of when I'm looking at my cases is, looking to see if there's any kind of, racial discrimination or something like that regarding stopping of the car or anything like that.
All right. This may be a sensitive question. I don't know if you can answer, but are the crimes that Spanish speakers are accused of, are they any different from English-speaking people?
I don't think so. I mean, I've seen the whole gamut from all kinds of races, from anything from traffic-related type crimes to domestic violence or drug-related. I mean, I don't really see a particular ethnicity that is charged with one particular crime as opposed to others. So it kind of runs the gamut.
Right. And the last question is specific about Hispanic people. What's your best advice to them that, people that are not fluent in English or may not speak English at all or can't read it or write it, what should they do if they're under a criminal investigation or if they're pulled over?
Well, for anybody, I mean, you need to have the services of an attorney, and whether you speak Spanish or English or whatever language you speak, it's important not to talk to the police at the time that you're being investigated, because anything you say could be used against you, of course. The other part of it is that, if someone's trying to communicate in a broken English or cannot fully express themselves, then again things might be lost in translation. So number one, it's best not to say anything to the police that may possibly incriminate you. And second of all, whether you're a Spanish speaker, an English speaker, or whatever language you speak, it is important to have an attorney by your side going through the process so that they can fully advise you of what your rights are and also fully advise you of what the potential consequences to something may be. And so that's, whether it's a Spanish speaker or an English speaker, it's important to have an attorney by your side to make sure your rights are protected.
Okay.